The Thanksgiving turkey sat untouched in the middle of the table, its golden skin losing warmth under the chandelier light. My mother's famous stuffing, her pride and tradition, had cooled in the serving dish. Cranberry sauce glimmered like rubies, but no one was eating. Everyone's attention was elsewhere, frozen mid-motion, caught in a moment that had nothing to do with food. My brother Derek's fork hovered halfway to his mouth. He was mid-sentence bragging about making senior analyst at his firm, but the words died on his lips. Across the table, my mother had gone pale, clutching my father's arm as if it could anchor her against the shock rippling through the room. My father's eyes were fixed on Grandpa, a mixture of disbelief and something darker, betrayal. I took another sip of my Chardonnay and stayed quiet. Let them speak first. The house on Riverside Drive, Grandpa said cheerfully, slicing into his turkey. What a steal! At $310,000 with your $150,000 down payment, you only financed $160,000. By now you must have paid down a good chunk of that mortgage, Emma, right? My mother's hand shot up. Dad, I think you're confused. Emma doesn't own a house. Grandpa's bushy eyebrows lifted. Confused, Margaret? I may be 78, but I'm not senile. I wrote that check myself back in 2015. Helped her with the down payment personally. The room went silent. Even my 6-year-old nephew, sensing the tension, stopped poking at his mashed potatoes. Derek blinked first. Wait, you own a house? Since when? Since June 2015, I said calmly, keeping my tone even. A 3-bedroom colonial, hardwood floors, updated kitchen, backyard large enough for a garden. It's a lovely home. My father's face went from pale to red. That's impossible. We would have known. You would have told us. Would I have? I met his gaze directly, unwavering. Why would I tell a family that spent the last decade making it clear Derek is the golden child and I'm the background? My mother tried to protest. That's not fair. Isn't it? I said, setting down my wine glass. Derek, when you bought your condo 3 years ago, how many family members helped you move? All of them, he muttered, shifting uneasily. And when I moved into my house in 2015? I asked. Silence. No one answered. None of you even knew I was moving. I never made a big announcement. I didn't need to, because nobody asked. Nobody cared enough to notice that I suddenly stopped coming to family dinners or seemed busy on weekends. Grandpa nodded slowly, understanding dawning. They didn't know. Margaret, you always said you were proud of Emma, but you never really noticed. My mother's face fell. You told me you were proud, Grandpa continued. But I see now that sometimes we celebrate loudly for one and quietly overlook the other. Derek flushed, his mouth opening and closing. Grandpa's voice sharpened. I didn't give Derek money for his condo. I gave Emma $150,000 from my retirement savings because she had a plan, credit, and maturity. Unlike others who called me for bail money. Derek opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Emma repaid me in 18 months, Grandpa added firmly. With interest. She didn't need handouts. She handled it herself. The room froze. My parents' expressions were somewhere between horror and awe. My mother's mouth opened and closed silently. My father's voice was hoarse. You paid him back? How? Monthly installments from July 2015 to December 2016, I said evenly. $8,333 a month plus 2% interest. I have the statements if you want to see them. The disbelief hung thick in the air. My salary at the time? $87,000 a year. Promotion since then brought me to $118,000 plus bonuses averaging $15,000 annually. Yet somehow no one ever bothered to ask. Derek's jaw had dropped. $118,000? That's more than I make. Yes. And that's just my salary, not counting the house equity, paid off student loans or investments. My mother's hand trembled over her wine glass. Emma, why didn't you say anything? I leaned back, letting the weight of 10 years of invisibility fill the room. I did, but you were too busy celebrating Derek. You weren't listening. Grandpa nodded, a proud smile tugging at his lips. Smart, capable, independent. That's my girl. And at that moment the truth was undeniable. For 10 years I had been invisible to the people who raised me. But that invisibility didn't diminish my achievements. Even as Derek gaped and my parents scrambled for explanations, I sat there quietly, knowing I had built something real, something no one could overlook forever. The tension at the Thanksgiving table was thick enough to slice with a carving knife. Silence had replaced conversation. Even the kids had stopped fidgeting. Derek's usual smug confidence had completely evaporated, replaced by wide-eyed shock. My parents were frozen, grappling with the reality they hadn't noticed for over a decade. I can't believe this," Derek stammered, staring at me as if I had grown a second head. "You've been living like this? Paying off a house, earning more than me. All this time?" "Yes," I said evenly. "And doing it quietly, without the need for applause or approval. You never asked. You never noticed. So I didn't tell you." My father's voice cracked. "But how? You make marketing $87,000 a year back then. You couldn't possibly have done all this." I leaned forward, letting each word land. "I made smart choices. Paid off debt, built equity, invested wisely. When I received promotions, I applied that additional income strategically. I lived below my means. That's why I was able to pay Grandpa back in full in just 18 months, even though he never expected repayment." Grandpa's eyes gleamed with quiet pride. "She's always been capable. You just didn't see it." Derek shook his head. "But I thought I was doing well. I make $95,000 now. I thought I was successful." I let out a soft laugh. "Derek's success isn't measured by a salary or a leased car. You spend $800 a month on a BMW to look impressive. I drive a used Civic. No monthly payment. Yet my net worth is over $325,000 in equity alone, not counting investments. That's the difference between living to impress and living to build." My mother's wine glass trembled in her hand. "Emma, why didn't you ever tell us any of this?" I studied her face. "I did early on. I called to share my first promotion. You were busy planning Derek's graduation party. I mentioned looking at houses. You said, 'That's nice, honey,' and went back to Derek's interviews. I invited you to my housewarming. You all had other plans, Derek's birthday in Vegas. You never came. No one noticed. No one asked. I became invisible." Grandpa leaned forward, his voice cutting through the room. "Margaret, Robert, you have 2 children, and you've celebrated one so loudly that the other's light never shone for you. That's not fair, and you know it." My father tried to speak, but words faltered. His defenses were crumbling. My mother's tears ran silently down her cheeks. Grandpa continued, unwavering. "Derek is your son, yes, but Emma is your daughter. For the last 10 years, you've treated her like a supporting character in his story." The truth hit like a punch. Derek shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I didn't realize," he muttered. "You didn't realize?" I asked. "You didn't notice my birthday for the last 4 years. You never RSVP'd to my housewarming. And every time I mentioned something I accomplished, you changed the subject. You assumed I had nothing to offer." Grandpa placed his hand over mine, steady and reassuring. "She's been building her own life, her own successes, her own wealth. And you didn't see it. It's time you do." The room was silent, heavy with shame and disbelief. Derek's lips parted, then closed. My parents had no defense. For once, there was nothing to argue. No excuse could erase a decade of neglect. I stood, gathering my wine glass, feeling the weight of years of being invisible lift just slightly. "Thank you, Grandpa," I said softly, "for reminding them what's been in front of their eyes all along." Derek looked down at his plate, ashamed. I didn't mean to. I just thought." "You assumed," I corrected gently. "You didn't ask. And now you see the consequences of not paying attention." The Thanksgiving turkey had gone cold. Cranberry sauce gleamed in the fading light. And in that quiet tension, the realization settled over everyone. For 10 years, I had quietly built a life, earned my place, and no one noticed until now. Comment below if your family has ever overlooked your achievements. What would you have done in Emma's place? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, and give it a like if you're enjoying the drama unfold. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Comment below what you would have done if your family overlooked your achievements for years. And if you're enjoying this story, give it a like, it really helps the channel. I grabbed my purse and rose from the table, the tension in the room thick enough to suffocate. My parents' eyes followed me, wide with panic, but I didn't look back. Grandpa walked beside me, steady and calm, like a silent partner in my unspoken plan. "This is harder than I expected," I admitted quietly as we stepped outside. "It has to be," Grandpa replied, patting my hand. "You can't keep bending yourself to fit into spaces that weren't meant for you." I exhaled, feeling the weight of years of being invisible finally lift. Tonight wasn't just about revealing the house, the salary, or the equity, it was about reclaiming my presence. My family had spent 10 years celebrating Derek while overlooking me, but now the record was corrected, and the balance had shifted. "Did you plan this announcement at dinner?" I asked, a small smile tugging at my lips. "Maybe a little," Grandpa admitted with a grin. "I've watched them overlook you for too long. Time someone shined a light on what they were missing." The drive to my house was quiet. Leaves swirled along the street, glowing under the autumn streetlights. I felt a strange calm. The confrontation had been difficult, emotional, but necessary. For once, I wasn't shrinking to make room for others' expectations. I had asserted my worth, and that was enough. Over the next few weeks, the fallout rippled through my family. My parents called more often than they had in years, their conversations awkward and cautious, filled with tentative questions about my life. They drove by my house twice but couldn't bring themselves to knock. Mom finally sent a birthday card in January, 3 months late, with a long handwritten note inside. Derek asked me to coffee. Just the two of us. 3 hours later, I walked away with a new perspective. For the first time, he asked about my life without comparing it to his own. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but it was acknowledgement. They had finally seen the space I had occupied all along. Meanwhile, my friends became my chosen family. My dining room filled with laughter and warmth as 15 people shared food, stories, and connection. Grandpa held court at the head of the table, retelling embarrassing tales from my childhood to an audience who truly appreciated them. And in that room, surrounded by the people who truly saw me, I realized something fundamental. I didn't need my parents' validation. I didn't need Derek's approval. For 10 years, I had been proving myself to people who weren't paying attention, but I had been paying attention to myself, to my growth, to my successes, to my life. As I looked around at the home I owned, the career I had fought for, and the relationships I had nurtured, it became clear. The house on Riverside Drive wasn't just a place to live, it was proof. Proof that I could create something remarkable without permission, without recognition, without anyone noticing. Ownership has a name, and that name is mine. Grandpa raised his glass in a toast. To Emma. To the decade she built without anyone noticing. And to the life she continues to build, surrounded by people who truly see her. I smiled, feeling the weight of invisibility finally lift. I didn't need their approval to validate my worth. I had already done that for myself. And now, for the first time, the world could see what I had quietly accomplished all along. Comment below if you've ever had to prove your worth quietly while others overlooked you. How would you handle a family like this? And if you're enjoying Emma's journey, give it a like, it really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more intense family drama and revenge stories.